All right, let's get right into it. The turn of the 20th century in America. Wow. This wasn't just a new page on the calendar. It was a period of absolutely breathtaking change. It was a time of soaring ambition and at the very same time, deeply rooted injustice. You could say it was really a tale of two Americas living right next to each other.
And, nothing really captures the spirit of one of those Americas better than this right here. This is the original Ferris wheel from the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. I mean, this was a statement to the entire world. It was a nation just brimming with confidence, showing off its incredible new technology, and this belief that, literally, the sky was the limit. This was a country that was completely in love with the future.
So how did this all happen? Where did this feeling come from? Well, it started with literally rebuilding the country from the ground up. This was an age of incredible engineering marvels, and it was all driven by the urgent needs of a country that was urbanizing at a truly breakneck speed.
And look, these weren't just cool structures to look at, they were absolutely essential solutions. See, with cities growing faster than ever, you couldn't just build out anymore, you had to build up. Steel skeletons gave us skyscrapers. The amazing Brooklyn Bridge, well, it didn't just cross a river, it basically stitched two massive cities together. And electric transit, that became the city's brand new circulatory system, moving millions of people and making the whole idea of a modern metropolis even possible.
And this picture just captures that new pulse perfectly, doesn't it? I mean, look at the sheer amount of life just teeming across that bridge. People, walking, carts, trains, all moving at once. This wasn't just a bridge. This was the new, dynamic heartbeat of American city life, a real artery for people and for business. But, amidst all of this steel and concrete, people started to realize that cities had to be places where you could actually live. Visionaries like Frederick Law Olmsted, the guy who designed New York Central Park, they argued for these green spaces, calling them lungs for the city. They wanted to make sure nature still had a place inside the concrete jungle. It was a really conscious effort to build a better human experience, not just taller buildings.
Now, all this building up in the cities was matched by a total revolution in how people connected with each other. The country wasn't just getting taller. In a lot of ways, it was actually getting smaller. These breakthroughs, well, they completely rewired society. New printing methods made newspapers so cheap that almost anyone could buy one, which created this shared national conversation for the very first time. George Eastman's simple little Kodak camera meant that suddenly regular people could document their own lives. It basically democratized memory itself. And then, of course, there was flight.
And what's so crucial to understand here is that when the Wright brothers' plane lifted off the ground at Kitty Hawk, it was so much more than just a cool invention. It was a psychological breakthrough. All of a sudden, the old boundaries of the world, both physical and in your imagination, just seemed to melt away. It felt like anything was possible.
So what was powering all this change? A huge part of it was a massive expansion of public education. I mean, it makes sense, right? A modern industrial nation needs a population that can read and stay informed. And America started building the school system to make that happen.
And the results were just staggering. Look at this. In just 50 years, the literacy rate jumped from 80% all the way up to almost 94%. That represents a huge societal investment, and it affected everything from who could vote to how fast the economy could grow.
But this is where the story takes a sharp turn. This is where we have to talk about the other America. Because this incredible wave of progress, this explosion of education and opportunity, it didn't lift all boats. For millions of African Americans, the promise of this new era remained cruelly, tragically out of reach.
So while one America was busy building skyscrapers that touched the sky, another America was busy building legal walls. At the exact same moment of technological triumph, a whole system of racial segregation, which came to be known as Jim Crow, was being written into law all across the South. And these weren't subtle suggestions. They were specific legal tools designed for one single purpose: to strip African Americans of their right to vote and with it, their political power. Poll taxes made it too expensive for many to vote. Literacy tests were almost always applied unfairly. And these so-called grandfather clauses were just a blatant tool to prevent men from voting if their grandfathers had been enslaved. Then, in 1896, the highest court in the land basically gave this whole system its blessing. In a case called Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court declared that segregation was perfectly constitutional, as long as the separate facilities for Black and white Americans were equal. This idea of separate but equal would give the legal cover for racial discrimination for over half a century.
And this is what separate but equal actually looked like. Let's be clear, it was never equal.
This picture isn't some abstract legal theory. It is the harsh, everyday reality of a legally divided country, and it was woven into the fabric of American life, everywhere from movie theaters and trains to schools and even water fountains.
But this injustice did not go unchallenged. No way. Courageous figures like Ida B. Wells, who was a brilliant and fearless journalist, used the power of the press to expose the absolute horror of lynching and to fight for basic civil rights. She and so many others literally risked their lives to demand that America live up to its own founding ideals.
So you have these deep, deep contradictions. What was life actually like for everyday people? Well, a new mass culture was starting to pop up, and it offered all these exciting new freedoms and experiences, which were, themselves, a complicated mix of brand new opportunities and those same old divisions.
For the first time ever, millions of people actually had some leisure time and a little bit of extra spending money. Professional baseball became a national obsession that could unite an entire city. These huge grand department stores turned shopping from just a chore into this dazzling experience. And amusement parks like Coney Island, they felt like these magical electric dream worlds, a perfect escape from the daily grind. And, sometimes freedom came from the most surprising places. Check out this quote from Susan B. Anthony. She said that the simple bicycle was revolutionary for women. Why? Because it gave them freedom of movement, a sense of independence, of self-reliance. A simple machine became a vehicle for personal liberation that helped change social rules for women all across the country.
So in the end, the turn of the 20th century left us with this incredibly complex, contradictory legacy. It was the very same society at the very same time that gave the world the miracle of the airplane and the tragedy of legalized segregation. Two Americas, bound together as one.
And all of this leaves us with a really difficult question, one that's hard to shake. It makes you wonder, can you have these massive leaps forward in technology and society without somehow also having deep social injustices happen at the same time? It's a question that absolutely defined that era, and honestly, it's one we're still wrestling with today.